When I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.
Welcome, everyone. Season 2, Episode 3, Master Keys Podcast. You are listening to Neal and Andreino and
Chandler Haliburton. Did my phone just beep? I'm going to turn this off.
Come on,
there we
Chandler.
go. Someone, a loyal listener, offered to hook me up with his Key 2. He says it's still in mint condition in case I need a backup. Shout out Christian.
Oh, what? Sorry?
A Key 2? This
Which-
is this edition of the BlackBerry. This gets a lot of traction online as my BlackBerry usage, and people are very concerned. Thanks for writing in about the fact that BlackBerry is discontinuing some of the services for some of their older models. My phone still works, so everyone, it's okay. Appreciate the concern.
No
but
worries. Chandler
can't
still
get a
has
new
to walk
phone.
around with a backpack with a friggin' antenna out of it.
But you can't get to like new phones. So this guy's got one. I don't know how he scored it, but I might have to pay.
There's a black market for Blackberries.
Yeah. Though the company that's been supplying them has said that they are going to be releasing a new model. So anyway,
Ooh,
note out.
fancy. Maybe we'll have a touchscreen. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. Master Keys Podcast. Getting a big eye roll here. Today we're going to be talking about making your first 10 grand or your first down payment. Some of the things that we did and some ideas that we have that are kind of, I think, more relevant today maybe than when we started. And then obviously go over the standard news and kind of an update on what we're up to. So with that, let's get started. Maybe I'll start with a little update on where I'm at. No new transactions for me. I'm still working through a 6 unit in the area that I like to buy. I've in that same area, which is Spryfield, a few buildings have come on market and gone for big numbers for that neighborhood. And it's definitely going to change things because once that happens, the off-market deals become harder to find because most other landlords are aware, at least of the public transactions that are taking place.
Yeah.
So there's a few that are pending sale right now that I'm very curious to see how they firm up because I think it might be the start of the end for me in Spryfield. I think this might be my last building because now at these new prices that they're trading at, unrenovated, on market, it's no longer feasible to make money, in my opinion, and kind of get the lift that you need to grow forward. They're still good investments, but they're not like an active
Yeah, it's just a
business
different play, right?
Exactly.
Like that you're lifting to break even kind of, or to recover your renovation costs, but not your initial investment, which is like the awesome thing is when you can recover your initial investment as well.
Yeah.
For context, what were those listed at price per door?
Roughly $150 a door for unrenovated, and then fully renovated at $225 to $240 a door, and they're both pending sale.
Yeah.
And I would say the renovation quality, from what I could tell from photos, was okay. And then the one that was unrenovated, I went through it. It was a nice standardized building, all 2-bedroom units. But again, $150 a door plus is a little scary, I think, for being able to get a lift. But again, as an investment, if you think you can get your rents, you can definitely get the 2 bedrooms up over $1,000 with minor renovation. So then you're going to cash flow, which is nice, right? Usually it's $500 of rent equals $100,000 of value. So if you're getting $1,000 a month and you're paying under $200 a door, you should have a bit of value there to get some cash flow out of it, even without having to go too crazy with the renos.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about sort of before, the world's rapidly changing around us. So it's kind of all like trying to figure out how to navigate this new environment that we're in. And my concern with that sort of stuff is the first thing you said was like, oh, if you can get the rents up, right? Like,
And that's the other thing.
so,
How do you get the rents up without renovating the units?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're putting a big outlay of cash up front, and these things have to appraise, which those numbers are reachable, but they're not a slam dunk. So they got to appraise. You got to put a big chunk down. If you're renovating them too, like, or if you're not, I don't know, man. It's gonna be hard to get the money out, but a lot of people are new to the market. They've got cash, they've got backers, they want to place it.
There's a lot of young guys in there.
A lot of young guys. Like every place that I show up, it's like there's a young guy that's around, I don't know, late 20s.
Yeah.
And then there's some older gentleman who looks like, 30 years older, right?
Yeah.
Presumably a father, uncle,
Partner.
Yeah.
That's very, very common. I would say
Yeah.
a lot of the guys looking at it was the same for this building. They have a family member that's involved that's going to be helping them get into it. And I've been seeing that with a lot of these buildings is a family member, whether it be, like you said, a father or an uncle or someone that they know that does the investing, that's willing to kind of be involved as an equity partner and give them some cash up front to help them get into it and get started. And they're full of piss and vinegar, so they're going to get the work done, get them their lift, get them the refi, and kind of roll forward with it, which is it's becoming more and more of a requirement because the pricing is getting to be more and more intense. And it's becoming more difficult even to make money on single families like we've talked about before. Yeah. So I was saying this to a few of my clients. I feel like we're having, like you see it in Alberta, everything trades for a set price. Everything's $200 a door. And so I feel like we're going there now with some of our things. Like everything is kind of all over the map. Like you see people closing deals at $70 a door, $150 a door, $250 a door. Like it's kind of crazy. Yeah. I think we're going to start to have more stabilized, like all of our, let's say lower income areas. It's instead of it now being $100 a door, it's just going to average out at like $170 a door. Everyone's going to be kind of knowing that becomes the value.
I mean, that seems like a stretch, my man.
It does, but then at the end of the day, like you think everyone's going to get their rents to about $1,000 a month now. Like you can rent anything.
The rent to $1,000 a month.
Exactly. Well, the rent controls need to change. I understand that. That's the one thing. But then on the flip side is there's always someone willing to pay that's coming from out of town.
That's the bigger issue.
Exactly. So that's what's going to do it in the short term, and in the long term, the rent will just kind of also stabilize at around $995 for the cheapest units, and that gives you those $170, $200 a door valuations.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of people reading the news on the market appreciation and not reading any of the news on the tenancy laws. Because why you would come from out of province to be like, yeah, let's do it, and not really grasp the challenges associated with turning these properties over, it's surprising me, but like whatever the headline is that the prices are going up. But
I think the value increases right now has allowed everyone to look past it, because even some of my clients who already own a bunch of units here don't even really know or understand the tenancy laws. So I think it's a mixture of like we're still making money and everyone's so busy and focused on acquiring things that they're not paying attention to it. And additionally, I think they're not doing a great job of making it super clear and concise and in one location.
No kidding.
Like you called me the other day because you couldn't find it, nor could I. And the only reason that we had the info at our place was my property manager called tenancy board and got it all broken out. But he also called them a few weeks ago.
Got a different answer.
Got a different answer.
Of course.
So this is the problem. And so he's been calling every week to get an update. And now there's supposed to be a form coming out. But I don't think anyone knows. Like I haven't seen anywhere online that there's supposed to be a form coming out. But if you call them, they'll tell you that there's a form coming out.
And that form will be about giving notice to a tenant for the purpose of renovation. It's funny, I talked to an investor in Winnipeg, and she was telling me a bit about, because we're sort of comparing tenancy law or tenancy rules, whatever you want to call it. And in Winnipeg, they've got a couple of really cool things. One, there's this thing called the Orders, which is a database that both tenants and landlords can search to see if there have been any orders against a particular tenant. I.e., deposit disputes, evictions, late payments that have been registered, or, offenses on the part of the landlord. Yep. And so they've got that amazing system. Everyone here clamors for the landlord registry. Bring it on, as long as it means there's a tenant registry as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other thing they've got there is that you're only subject to rent control if you fall below a certain price point. I can't remember what she said it was. It'd be like, if you're under 980, you are a low-income rent-controlled unit. But if you're above it, it's not rent control, so you can do whatever you want. Which is kind of counterintuitive, because like if you'd given someone a discount in the past, maybe you kept a rent artificially low at 950, even though it's nice enough to be a higher rent unit. Yeah. So there's obviously some nuance into that, but in a weird way, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, it kind of does make sense, because some of these neighborhoods and some of these buildings have been, historically one thing, and then it's now a problem where people come and change them to a different type of product, C class to B class or whatever. It's just people are like, different regions obviously are doing things differently, but with that order system especially, I'm like, man, bring that on here. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, the order definitely. Again, the rent control at different levels sort of makes sense, but then it also kind of feeds into this idea of like these slums where right now it's okay, like you can operate a building that's old if you got it for really cheap and you're getting your $900 a month, but it starts to perpetuate really bad. Like we were watching a show last night about how, because they've had rent control in places like New York for a long time, and this lady can't leave her 2-bedroom apartment because she's in for $1,300. And they're releasing them for $3,800. Yeah, she's in a rent controlled unit, so she's not leaving. Mm-hmm. But like I was like, okay, there is a difference where it's like rent's gone up triple. They've been there for whatever 30 years, if her and all the other tenants stayed in that building, I bet you once he pays his property tax, insurance, like just the basics of
Oh,
operating,
yeah, it'd be screwed.
he would be screwed. And
Yeah.
so it's only the fact that the rest of the units have turned over that building can keep operating. But it can cause a real issue, and he wouldn't be able to do the maintenance, and the building would end up defaulting, and then nobody's got a place to live.
Yeah.
So it just, I saw that and I was like, that shows that what happens over time. She's been getting her little 20, because she said she moved in at, like, their family moved in at $900 and now it's $1,300. And that's just been the incremental, like, rent controlled bumps.
Also, it's like, man, if you could afford $900 30 years ago, well,
Oh, she knew-
probably
she-
swing the extra rent.
She could swing a further rent, not necessarily 3,800, but more rent.
Neither here nor there, but yeah, it's and then I know that the housing department was looking at all the renovations that commission set up, and they're implementing, I think, a bunch of them, and that's why some of this news is still coming down the pipe. Interestingly, it's like, yeah, one of the things commission said was that rent control doesn't work, and that's like the one that they're just
Continuing to drag
continuing
on.
to do no matter what. The other thing that this woman mentioned that is commonplace, or if not commonplace, but it's a strategy that some landlords take in her area, was that they would offer rebates. So the rent is $1,500, but you get a rebate for the following: $100 off for this, $50 off for that, $50 off for that. So $100 off your rent for paying on time each month, $50 off for
Okay.
sorting your garbage, and $50 off for mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
Right? As a result, the rent you pay is $1,300.
Yeah.
The actual rent is $1,500, and there, the removal of something like a utility or whatever from the lease is not considered a rental increase. So you could remove some of these rebates over time, and that
Interesting.
makes you not subject to some of these rent control things. But
Yeah. You're also seeing amenity fees and your parking broken out in a lot of buildings now.
totally.
A lot of new construction buildings.
Yeah, I'm never renting parking with a unit again. I'm not renting storage lockers with unit. It's going to be separate.
Yeah, even if you give it as an incentive, it needs to be separate.
Totally. Yeah. Because that way it's like, well, rent can only go up 2%, but the locker fee is going up $50.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention, just about like when we were talking about what I'm doing right now, and we were talking about this before the mics got turned on, but with these rules changing, I'm obviously getting prepared, and you are too, to renovate a fair number of units.
Yeah.
So I have around 45 or 50 that I'm going to have to start doing my renovation on. And when we're getting to that point of bulk ordering, I'm starting to look at doing direct supply.
Yeah. This is super interesting. I mean, once you get this figured out, I'd love to do a whole episode on this because I'm obsessed with this idea.
Yeah.
This thing messes me up when it's not the right date. I'm changing the calendar here in studio for people who listen and don't watch.
Yeah. You good?
Is that right? All right, there.
All
I
right.
want it to be accurate when it
We
comes
got a
out
little
on Friday.
distracted. Sorry. So, anyways, but I'm doing direct supply, which I mean, I'm not doing direct. I'm still using a broker to do it, and I haven't finalized all the orders. But this kind of came to be because material costs have gone up so much. We first went to go order exterior lights that go on the buildings, and we were bulk ordering them from a local supplier, paying about $50 a light last year. We just got another quote, and now they're $99.99. So they're double. They're
Same
$100.
lights.
Same lights.
And how many lights you put on a building?
Depends on the building, between 8 to 10.
Really, that many, eh?
Yeah, I like to have them all the way around. Just I find having some lights on, it makes a
yeah.
huge difference in the way the building looks.
Totally.
And also people messing with cars and garbage laying around, it adds to it. And
Yep, that's a good point.
the neighborhood, they look sharp when you have some nice little LED lights on
Yeah.
all the exterior. Anyways, so that's a double price, and that became $10,000 for lights. And I was like, okay, this is actually kind of serious. So just quickly went on Alibaba and looked up exterior wall lights and found the exact same. It's a little slightly different, but exact same dimensions, same pewter finish, same lights that go in it, just slightly different style. And they're $5.80 each. So it went from $99.99 to $5.80 each. And I was just like, on 100, I'm saving $940 or $9,400 on the 100 that I'm going to order. So now it starts to be like, okay, wait a second, what else should I be doing? And I've also found out a lot of large developers are doing the same in the city, where they're ordering their a lot of their bathroom supplies, their full kitchens, their cords, their
Countertops.
flooring,
Yeah.
their countertops. Everything is coming direct. And I always wanted to do everything locally, but it's getting to a point where it's hard to do so. The pricing is so insane. And fortunately now with the internet, it's quite easy to get direct connection. And if there's a language barrier, there's tons of brokers. That's a big business. There's a lot of brokers that offer the basically translation service to get it sorted out.
And you feel less guilty when you realize that the people you're buying from locally are ordering it from there anyway.
This is the
Right,
thing.
so-
I was just saying, like, so like I was telling you, these lights, when you order them, you can put on there, you can change the name on the box, you can change like all the other specifications, what's written on there and everything. So like all these big companies, that's what they're doing at the end of the day is they're going to suppliers in China and getting their brand, whatever, what is it, Hampton Bay? Is that Kent's brand or Home Depot's brand? Yeah, so Hampton Bay, all that is Alibaba.
Or an equivalent.
Yeah, exactly, or an equivalent. And they're just getting the Hampton Bay put on there, certain colors and all that, and they can have it all printed and sent here. You can even have the metal etched with the Hampton Bay or whatever you want, and it's like an extra 50 cents a thing. Like it works out. So if you go full, if you get the full package, you're in for like $7 a light. And so that's like, I was like, you know what, I can't be doing that. So on the same note, I actually also contacted a local company here that does the brokering, and they're going to do my kitchens. And I'm not 100% yet. And if
That one makes me nervous.
That one makes me nervous too. And if my kitchen supplier is listening, like it's nothing against his kitchens are amazing. He's done me unreal. But the problem is it just comes down to like pure pricing. At the end of the day, the building costs, I'm paying double for these buildings now, plus double for the renovations. Additionally, with all the rent problems that were taking place, it's hard to start actually being able to get a lift out of these and move forward. And so it's looking like the kitchens and courts will come in to be about 50% of the cost. So in the savings of $3,000 to $4,000 a unit on kitchens and courts, which again, you multiply out by the 50 units I'm looking to do, that's another $200,000 that can be saved. And so my thing is, even if a few of the kitchen doors fall off and or other things break, a couple $100,000 will cover the cost of me having to replace a few kitchens here and there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And again, it's comparable in a lot of respects to the materials you're getting here anyway. The thing that concerns me about the kitchens is even when you're in a building where you're like, all right, all these units are the same. Man, when you start putting those kitchens in, you're like, how come this opening here is like an inch smaller in this kitchen than in that kitchen?
100%.
Right? So you do have to...
I'm not using them in my house, and I wouldn't use them if I was building single-family homes. But in a rental place where the cabinets are probably going to have to be replaced in 15 years anyways, they're going to get ripped off the walls. They get beat up. Like, they're going to get beat up. They're going to get destroyed. And, like, the styles are going to start to fade. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to do... Or your rents are going to drop. Like, it's one or the other. Then I'm okay to do it. And like I was telling you, I did have some... I'll say overseas kitchens installed in one of my first triplexes, and the biggest problem I had was all the doors ripped off because the hinges were just garbage. And this supplier, what they've done now is they still build all the cabinets and everything there, but they put in North American hinges. So there's a local company that builds and makes the hinges in North America, Bloom, and they use those because they're really nice. They're soft closed, they're strong, and all that. So then you don't have that issue.
Yeah,
that was like the one issue that everyone had. And they now fix that. And so you're seeing it in a lot of new high-end luxury buildings that people are paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month for an apartment. They have these same cabinets and kitchens and
which is also like an interesting little thing to take away from like, you know, learning, like emulate what other people are doing. Like you find out that these big developers are banging out these buildings. And I remember hearing about this a while ago when all these apartment builders were going over to Asia and loading up crates full of granite and stuff like that to do all the countertops the exact same. It's like, does it really make sense to go over there, order it all, ship it back here? It can't actually make a difference, but it does significantly reduce the price when you're doing a high volume of stuff.
High volume. And again, I don't necessarily think it did a ton before. I think it's starting to make a little bit more sense now. Because when I looked at it originally a few years back, the price difference wasn't enough for me to take the risk. It was like $1,000. So
that's the thing. Like I've thought about this many times, and the risk of it, you know, them coming in damaged, them not being great, them being delayed.
Yeah.
You know,
that's my biggest concern is the delay.
Yeah. Just stuck in the canal. Neal's over there with the shovel, shoveling out the canal himself.
I need my kitchens back. I've had that concern, and so I'm probably not going to do all 50 right off the hop, but I am probably going to order a package of like 6 or 12 of them and just see how that goes. Like one container full, see if I like it. And it's funny, like they can offer like the specification changes you can make too, because if you want extra thick quartz, like they can do it where they cut it and then they put the quartz on an angle so it looks like you have 3 inches of quartz, and they'll do all of that. And it's like so cheap. Like here, if you want to get a waterfall countertop,
stuff,
it's insanely expensive. And then if you do it from them, it's like, oh, it's an extra $75. Like, you know, I can do waterfall countertops for $75. Like, sure, here it'd be like $7,500 for a friggin' island.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so the other big thing is having good installers on this end. So I'm sure a lot of my guys, I might get some. I know I ordered flooring. I did do flooring from China once, and my flooring installer, he had to increase his bill. He said, look,
he walked off.
Yeah,
he walked off the job.
He cursed and swear, and he said, fine, I'll install it. And then he got into it and he's like, I have to increase my labor rate. He's like, it's taking me 50% longer because of the click mechanism that they use. Must be cheaper to produce. Is a lot more difficult to install.
It's funny because I remember someone was shopping me some like, hey, we want some click flooring? Man, I got a lead on like a guy who got some click flooring, and it's like
29 cents.
Oh man, it was like so cheap. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like you get one color selection and it doesn't go down well. I'm like, no, man, I'm good. Paying a little bit extra.
But see now, so it was the same for me. They only had the one color, so I bought it all. But on the flip side, now that I want to order direct from them, they gave me a binder. I swear to God, it must have 600 colors to choose from because they're just printing them. Like they just printed on the flooring. So they had literally sent me a binder with 600 different flooring. It was overwhelming. I was like, can we just narrow this down to 3? Like,
yeah. Well, the problem, like, and it's funny, we were joking about this before I got on. I forgot that we were recording today. So I was like, the first 2 episodes of this season, I'm like in sweatpants, totally tired, just long, ragged day. But I spent a lot of today picking out flooring and going with the luxury vinyl plank. But my biggest concern is always that clicking mechanism.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm choosing the flooring specifically based on the click.
Yeah.
Because, man, that stuff is great until it doesn't go down well or until it starts coming up. It's a pain after that. So.
I've had no issue with the stuff that I've been buying. Shout out Happy Harry's. They've been the bomb for giving me good stuff, and I've never had any of them come apart. And I've had no issues with finishes. Like their finishes, that's the other thing. You want to make sure your wear layer is really good.
The vinyl stuff is
it's bulletproof. It's crazy. You can sit in water for like 6 months and it's still fine. Like I have in some entranceways that I swear to God have been permanently wet since I've owned the building, and the flooring is fine.
Yeah, no, it's a great product for sure. And it's funny. I use Happy Harry for those as well.
Yeah.
Because you can go in there and you can see the product and you can see how the clicking mechanism works, and they're good prices. And but
use our code Master Keys at
cheapers, man. We got to start getting
at
some
the cash register
stuff. It's crazy
to get no percent off and a really weird look from the lady at the cash.
Tell Carl we sent you.
Yeah.
No, that's exciting, man. I'm excited for you to be the guinea pig on that, and if it works out well, then I will do it also. But you can try it for me. There's just these little things like, okay, if they're going to cut the sink, like making sure it's in the exact right spot.
Yeah.
And you don't have to afterwards muck around with it, right? Because you can fudge some things, but there's
like an angle.
Well, there's nothing worse than a piece of quartz that's like an inch short, and then you're like that. You've got that gap between the wall. Like I've seen like some bad flips over the years.
That's what silicone's for.
Oh my God, nice bead of silicone. There.
You've seen there's a product for this. I actually had this issue once before with my China stuff, and they make like these little foam strips. You can buy them from Home Depot. You stick the foam strip in, and it's designed to hold the silicone up when it's like a really thick bead. Because otherwise you're never going to be able to, like every time you put the silicone in, it's just going to fall through the crack. So you put this piece of foam in there, and then you put the silicone on top of the foam.
This guy.
And then it just covers up. It's perfect. You can even get stuff to color the silicone. So like you use white, and then you can like dab stuff on it to make it just blend in like the countertop. To all,
I'm sure that looked
to
really
all the frugal
good.
listeners out there, I'm telling you, it's a great way to get by sometimes. As the food collects in the sticky silicone.
We're gonna change this to just a renovation tip podcast featuring Neal's tips.
What do you got going on? You anything else? It's any flooded basements recently? We had some crappy weather again.
No, so we got the furnace in.
At your house?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
So ended up having to get. I can't remember what we talked about the last time because I was half asleep. But we ended up getting the furnace. They had to like spec build it based on the size of the home and the old cast iron rads, and it's 670 pounds for just like the chamber, right? Because inside the metal box that you see is the actual combustion chamber or something. I don't know. And so we had to go and pick it up in pug wash because like, we'll deliver it next time we're down there. I'm like, I'm freezing here, man. So we went, threw it on my dad's trailer, whatever you call it, dragged it back here, and then we've got this 700-pound. They had to forklift it off. They had forklift it on, forklift it off.
Yeah, how'd you get in your house?
Boom truck.
No, you didn't.
$600 boom truck.
Oh, okay.
Had to come and swing it.
You have to swing into the.
Well, I'm like, how are you going to boom it through the door? But they kind of like angled it and then like had to build a ramp. So like boomed it onto a ramp and got it down. And then, we got it in. So I have heat.
Congrats. It's exciting.
That's exciting, man. Moving on up.
I thought for sure you're going to get the kids and the whole fam lifting that thing in.
Oh, man. Like it was so small looking in the end. Like, man, this thing, It's like jeepers heavy. So got that done. Also put another heat pump in, which was something we were doing anyway. Just kind of rushed it in order to get that heat. Got 2 of the units in that 8 unit that I closed on a little while ago all demoed out. So super pumped, and have been choosing my selections, kitchens. I kind of like that aspect of the whole thing. We've talked about this before. I like the creative aspect of like picking out, counters and flooring and paint and all this, man. I love that stuff.
I hate it.
Really, I freaking love that, man. Give me that booklet. I'll pick out the flooring. Love that stuff.
I'm going to keep shouting out Josh. Shout out Josh. I just give him all the booklets and everything, and he picks everything.
Yeah.
It stresses me out. I am a bad chooser, and I'm just like,
yeah.
I can't match colors. Like I'm trying to do my house right now, and it's the most overwhelming thing in the world. And I'm just now hiring Bird. I'm just getting Charlotte and Bird, like the designer, and Bird the Bird's a plumbing supplier and material supplier.
Yeah, fixtures.
And then Charlotte's a designer, Charlotte Interiors. She's really good. Anyways, the 2 of them are just connecting and just getting a list and getting all the products. Because for me, I went to a couple stores, got super stressed out, overwhelmed, and frustrated that I couldn't find what I wanted within about 30 minutes, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it can get overwhelming for sure. And you know what? We also probably stick to the pretty basic stuff. It's a lot harder when you're doing something for your own home. Like I'm like, all right, these are, fine, and they're replicable and they're on trend. But when you're doing your own space and you're like, well, I want it to be on trend, but not the same thing you see in every person's house.
Yeah.
It's why it's so hard to pick out wallpaper, man. That's the hardest one of all. But so doing that, the market's starting to ratchet back up. I lost a bid today. We were one of 44 offers.
Oh, 44?
44.
Where?
Offers.
Which one?
It was in like Portland Hills. It was
Was it Alpine?
Yeah.
44? Yeah. Okay, well, I lost a bid today, and we were one of 30.
Where's that?
The Sackville.
So, Alpine, lovely house,
44?
Relatively not extraordinary. It was a bungalow, 19 years old, original finishes, and there were 44 bids on it.
My guy wrote on that. So I was the lead that I passed off. No way, 44. So it was up for 540, so it probably went, 800?
It started with the 7, I'd say. But
yeah, that's getting to be a bit psycho.
Well, that was priced too low. Even for like price low to drive up business. Anyway.
Market is insane. Things need to change. But on the flip side to that, and this is something I want to talk about, it's the interest rates. We've kind of mentioned it a few times. There's a few things that are going on right now in the general news.
I just see here supermarket shelves empty. This is also one of Neal's things that he goes on about all the time.
My general news, everybody, if you haven't heard me scream about it in every single episode, interest rates, inflation, and supermarkets are empty. So what the hell is going on? It is factual,
man. Like I know Neal sounds like a lunatic whenever he goes on about the empty shelves.
Yes.
But even people are now posting about it on like my Facebook, like, I was at the grocery store today and there's nothing on the shelves. It's like, yeah, man.
It's getting to a point where it's going to be
something
weird.
Going on.
Well, here's the other thing. The restaurants aren't consuming it. So, there's also the aspect of where restaurants aren't open as much. People are cooking a bit more at home. But restaurants are a giant consumer of groceries in general. Like, the restaurant supply is a huge part of the consumption. And that's not taking place right now. Mm-hmm. And the supermarkets are empty. Like, and it's also getting to a point where, like, we've been all kind of squeaking by. Like, it hasn't been, like, a huge freak out for anybody because you've still been able to get what you need. Mm-hmm. But now, like, I was in there the other night, and I'm like, I wanted baby carrots, but they didn't have any, and I was like, but all right, whatever.
I'll get the regular size carrots and cut them down.
Exactly. But it's slowly getting to a point where you're going to go and you're like, there's just the only produce today is asparagus. Like that
just flips over the produce table. Like, goddamn baby carrots.
What is this shit? But no, but in all seriousness, like it's same with the meat. In the meat section, there was like one broken package of like chicken thighs, and there was nothing else. And I was like, this. Like at some point, it's getting to the point where we're all gonna be standing here. There's gonna be 10 of us standing here, and that's gonna be the only package of chicken thighs. Then what do we do?
Well, since COVID started, we've been doing this thing where you order ahead and then you just go pick it up. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and they'll do like replacements if like, all right, what you want isn't in.
Yeah.
But we've got something similar. We're gonna replace it.
Yeah. Organic, low fat, no sodium, and you're like, fuck this.
Yeah. No. It's getting to the point where 33% of the stuff of our recent order was not available and had to be replaced.
Yeah.
And it was like things that you're like, what do you mean you don't have that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, so it, I don't know.
I don't know why I'm the only one that's panicked. Like, why is no one else? When I went through the superstore the other night, I had a freak out. Like, that seems so sketchy that there's no, like, anyone think back through your entire brain. Has there ever been a time that you went into the grocery store and it was like empty like it is now? yes, I know on Christmas Eve it's a little bit barren, but it's never even this
man,
empty.
It is.
The only time I can think of this
noticeable.
is when I see these pictures of like the Great Depression where people are outside begging for bread.
Well, remember
And
we
I'm
had Igor on, and he talked about how in Ukraine or the former USSR, people would line up at a store just because they heard they might be getting something.
This is
Not like, not anything particular, but something.
and the
better line up.
prices.
Yeah.
Like what the hell? That's what I mean. Yeah, people are like this is what it's gonna be. We're gonna have people lining up to get something, and the something's gonna be way more pricey than it ever was. And because they can literally.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, okay, we're completely sold out of pretty much everything at this point. We're now getting Oreos, and they used to be $2.99 a box, but because there's 100 of you guys standing outside, they're $6.99 a box.
I think, and people can individually do what they want to do, but from a business's standpoint and from a government standpoint, I think we should be being more frugal right now. And no one seems to be people are just like, made so much money last year, right? Like, because I know a lot of people had a very difficult year. A lot of other people had a lot of money coming in. And they're spending like they had a lot of money coming in. And I don't know. We see it firsthand because we know that the number of transactions are going to be down. So think about that. 44 offers on that property,
Yeah.
right? One person got it.
Yeah.
So that means 43 agents did the work and didn't get paid,
So they're not eating.
right? Like, there's going to be a shrink in the number of transactions, and that's going to go for everything. Like, if they don't have that produce, they are not selling that produce.
This is my
Right?
whole thing. This is
Yeah.
where I'm like, everyone's like, what's going to cause a recession? I'm like, I understand consumption is up, but if the stuff is not there to be consumed,
Yeah.
I don't care what's happening. People aren't going to, like, people might start pre-ordering
And
stuff.
then you get the stagflation because people are going to be unemployed and prices are going to be going up,
yeah.
right?
Everyone in
That's-
sales, like all the car
Yeah.
salespeople, like there's going to be no positions. Even like Superstores hours are going to start to reduce because like you don't need, well, they already are reduced. They used to be 24 hours. Now they're like 12 hours. You're not going to need 12 hours to sell 16 pieces of fucking bananas. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's
Pieces of bananas?
look,
They're actually sold individually
separate
wrapped,
bundles
Neal.
of bananas. I meant pieces, bundles of bananas.
good, yeah.
But you get my point. You know what I'm saying? My point is like if they don't have that much stuff, like they're just not going to need the people to do it. And I mean, doubling down with the technology now, you can do other things to offer stuff as well. But it's like they'll go down instead of they have 40 cash registers, they'll have like 4 open and the self checkout. So, anyways, all these things are kind of doing. I know I screamed that it was me Christmas time. It's looking like it's a little bit after Christmas, but I still think that there's something serious going to change here.
What do you think's causing it? And what are they going to be the ramifications? I mean, obviously increasing prices have to be the ramifications, but
Well, I mean, the trigger I think started with COVID, shut down things across the planet. So every place had a little trigger effect where they all stopped and had their moment. Combined with, like you said, there's the increased consumption because the people that were making money were making more money, which forced consumption. And additionally, a lot of people that were out of work got. So what's happening is a lot of people that were out of work due to all the shutdowns now got a bunch of money from government subsidies, effectively what took place. They're now spending that money. And a lot of people got as much or more or made more money because of between government subsidies and part-time work and stuff like that. It actually added up to be more than what they were doing. Plus, they have a lot more free time. Like when you're at home, you eat more, you shop more online for different things. You're more likely to go out. Okay, in the evenings now, you're more likely to go mini putting because you've been at home all day and you're bored.
even if you shift the loss of what you'd consume at a restaurant and then move that to increased
Exactly.
demand at the superstores, yeah.
So you have all of those things taking place, but now a lot of people were out of work and not actually working. So you had a massive cash injection, and then additionally, a good portion of the general consumer spent that money, so it ends up getting readjusted and sent basically up to the top 1%, which everyone gets upset
Why
about.
Walmart and Amazon were just crushing it through this whole thing.
Exactly, and that's why your billionaires list has grown faster than ever before, because a lot of people in any sort of product, everyone's in sales, and on that list at the end of the day, they sell some sort of product. They've sold more than they ever have before, so the wealth gets redistributed up again. So now you had less production because people weren't working and more consumption. So then you have all the issues on the shipping side of things that get mixed into that pot. So you put all that in there, and then you have the inflation that comes with all the new money. Like you start stacking all of these items, like it's going to have an explosive effect at some point. It's going to give, and again, the people that are going to get hurt are the general consumer. Because now the general consumer's probably burnt through a good majority of the government money that they got. They're back to their original position or lower.
All their interest is increasing.
Every
right,
single
everything
product that they carry, whether it be credit card, car loan, line of credit, mortgages, all those are going to increase. And then additionally, inflation. Everything's going to cost a bit more. So now they lose a couple $100 a month of income. They're spending a couple $100 a month extra on interest, plus everything's inflated in price. And additionally, those interest rates, that impacts the big guys too. So when Superstore borrows their money to run their Superstore, everything, if their interest rate goes up on 2% on their $5 billion that they have loaned, that 2% is going to go across the board on everything they sell. Right? So like it's a double down effect that you're going to start seeing. And you're seeing massive amounts of inflation and rates. Like, so we talked about last time CMHC is offering all these new rental, new mortgages and stuff like that, 50-year AMs, new programs. They're doing that because they know what's coming down the pipe. If they don't do that, there's going to be a lot of rental people that are going to get screwed. They're doing 50-year AMs because they know rates are going up. And if they don't offer you a 50-year AM,
it won't get done.
You're going to default on your building.
And all of these things, I mean, I think there's what's in the pipeline is going to continue to rip through the pipeline. And then I think construction is going to flatten off big time.
And that's the other thing. Like right now, construction across North America is a big boom. That's holding a lot of people, but a lot of people are making lots of money.
Totally.
There's a ton of people being employed by that. There's a ton of people, like I've said before.
Because there's a lot of government spending too. So a lot of it's infrastructure based. Like we are writing checks here, like left and right.
States too. They just signed a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure thing. That's their whole thing is put the money in through infrastructure, which is a better way to spend it versus just sending $800 a month out to everybody.
Yeah, totally.
Infrastructure is a better way of doing it, but additionally, same thing. Those projects eventually do dry
they're doing
up.
both also too.
Exactly.
They're writing the checks for infrastructure and just handing out these bills. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And then
not being able to get your banana pieces might be more concerning than you think.
Can I have a piece of banana?
That's what it's going to come to.
Not the whole thing. I don't want the whole thing. Just give me this peeled off strings from the side. I just want to eat those.
Nobody wants those.
Oh, man. Okay. On that cheery note, what else we have here? I guess that's all stuff we talked about. One of these days, we're ranting. We just love a rant episode.
We just went off there. I got a little fired
ESG.
up. Yeah, you've been saying this. Let me hear it.
People just...
What is ESG?
ESG is going to become effectively a new wokeness credit rating that corporations and eventually people will get.
Is wokeness a word?
Yes. Yeah. It's the
okay. I'm getting all nods. All right. Apparently, I'm not woke.
So ESG, the acronym is environmental, social governance, if I recall correctly. Anyway, I feel like this is a whole episode, but do a little bit of a dive into this. And it all sounds phenomenal because it's this idea that corporations are going to start being assigned a score based on their good deeds, for lack of a better term. Like, where do they stand on social issues? Where do they stand on environmental issues? And as a result, if you as the consumer want to spend your hard-earned money with a corporation that has a good credit rating for their, wokeness score, and avoid ones that maybe have a lesser.
Yep.
And that all sounds great. And if you go through them, like, how could you not agree with them? Like, promoting environmental sustainability, supporting diversity hires, supporting, non-exploitive labor. All these things sound great.
Yep.
The problem is when you realize that this is effectively a credit rating score, that means based on how you subscribe to a certain belief system or ideology is going to affect your company's ability to do business. And I was getting pitched because now, of course, when something comes like this, someone's like, how can I sell that to people? So I was getting pitched by this consulting firm that's like, we'll help you integrate and raise your ESG score now while it's voluntary because soon it's going to be mandatory. That you'll have to pay third-party companies to come in and score you so that then consumers can see what your score is. And your score is determined is essentially how much you believe in a number of ideals.
Yep.
And that's fine and dandy while some of them sound nice. But there's just something very tyrannical about having to go along with a belief system because if you don't, you will be punished financially, your ability to borrow, right? Your ability to get investors. And, it's kind of a reward punishment system based on virtue signaling, which I think is very oppressive. I think it's because then also you have to require your employees to subscribe to these things.
Yeah.
So if you see now, even a really common one is how people sign off on their email signatures. corporations are starting to require people to
Pronouns.
use their pronouns.
Yep.
And, treating, using someone's proper pronoun is certainly something I wholeheartedly agree with, but requiring your employee to put their pronoun in their signature because you want to get a higher score to then get better credit rating, and sponsoring certain events and feeling a certain way, for example, petroleum products, or, then you bring in different faiths and their belief systems. And the irony is they say they want a diverse workforce, but it's like, no, you want everyone in the workforce to be the exact same. And again, believing in those things is one thing, right? But being required to believe in them rubs me the wrong way. Yeah. And so if you haven't heard about ESG, you're going to hear a lot about it. Yep. And it is going to start with corporations, and they're going to find a way to leverage it. This is why you'll see a lot of corporations sponsoring events that maybe they hadn't in the past, because it looks good on their brand and gets them a higher score.
That's masked.
And then they will get better boring ability based on that, or worse. It's only a matter of time before that trickles down to the individual. And there are already parts of the country where, if you jaywalk, you can get facial recognition, you get a social credit ding, which could affect your ability to borrow in the future.
China.
All of these things, like this, I don't know. I think it's an attack on individual freedoms. And in the pitch that I was given, they even said the purpose of your company, the purpose of a company is no longer decided by the company. Saying that as if it was a good thing, right? Like it's decided by the stakeholders. I mean, the people that invest and the people that buy your products, they get to decide what you as a corporation subscribe to in terms of your beliefs. And I just think...
It feels like a movie. I'm trying to think what movie it is, but there's just like everything's so controlled and everything is like set standard. And it ends up going to the point where it's just a few massive corporations that can really meet all of their requirements.
But not only that,
it carte blanches everything. But like you're saying, and you lose your freedoms within that.
And then there's these corporations that then assign these credit ratings. So you have to pay these other corporations to rate you. What if those belief systems change? Like right now,
who determines what they are?
Who determines what they are?
Yeah.
You know, and I go through them like, these all sound great. But some of them I kind of think, well, that's a bit of a gray area. I don't necessarily believe in that. It's like, no. Yeah. If you want the best credit rating. So ESG, man, like, and any of those who you worked in a maybe traditional white collar business structure, you are going to start hearing all about that. And it's going to be sold with roses and sunshine. And isn't this all what we want anyway? But
at first it'll seem
mandating what you need to believe in and what you need to express and convey and signal out there, and then requiring all your employees to do it on an individual basis, I think is really a slippery slope, man. That's my rant. So Google it. Don't Google it.
Look up ESG and banana pieces and see which one resonates more. No, wow.
I wasn't planning to talk about this, so I don't know if any of that made any sense.
No, let's do an ESG one. I haven't done much research on it, but I'm now completely sketched out because I think that's a little bit nuts, and it's just like a continued control thing. And I mean, they've put other systems in place about ratings and requirements for corporations to do, but this is getting to be, like you said, it's kind of an infringement just on your general freedom, and not to sound like one of those people that just like screaming about like I want my freedoms and I know my rights, but like there's a certain level, like you said, like some people now they're going to have to do certain things like that, whether it be like as simple as a pronoun in your email, which doesn't really impact anyone.
No,
to have to do it.
And I think everyone should do what they feel comfortable with, and should be communicated with in a respectful way. But to mandate that someone does that, and then potentially have your business impacted negatively if you don't operate and subscribe to a certain credit system, I don't know, man. I just think it's a slippery slope.
I think it ultimately also turns people against certain things like this. Like I think
totally. If you believe that petroleum-based products have a role in our future, that's going to hurt your rating on this thing.
Yeah.
Right. As one example, if you hiring policies like that, those are always up for debate.
I'm way more concerned on who's involved in creating the things that are going to be considered required. Like.
Yeah.
Who knows enough and understands enough, or even what panel can make a decision on that? Because I think like a lot of these items, there's a certain level of ignorance that you just can't not have. Like no person or board can know enough to be able to make a decision on some of these items. Like they're just so big.
Well,
they're bigger than a little panel can come up with, and then enforce upon thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of people that work at these corporations.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be millions of people because it's international.
It's going to boil out, yeah.
But it's going to be lobby groups who create, or lobby
That's the thing, and they're
these
going to lobby the panels to do it.
administrative panels who decide these things and who assign these scores. And it's going to go with the flow of the time. Like, all right, well, what do we want to support this week?
Metaverse.
Right. And then how do you go the other way? I don't know. Again, this was totally off topic. I just think it's really interesting as someone who is.
These are some big topics to think about.
Yeah.
If you're driving right now, just.
Well, for example, do you think being a landlord, and say we got to the point where a future credit rating thing determined, your quality as an individual and then your ability to borrow money or invest money or be hired, what if you were a landlord at one point in time and like that was viewed negatively? Like if we had to take a survey right now and assign social credit ratings in the city of Halifax, how would people assign us?
I think about that a lot. I'm like, I guarantee you they're going to be able to get to a point where they can see, because everything's on the internet now. And so like all the crap that people are saying on Instagram and Facebook, even sometimes browsing histories, all that kind of stuff, at some point, I'm like, that's going to come back to bite people, I think.
It's going to be corporate cancel culture, which will slowly infiltrate its way down to individual cancel culture.
Yeah.
Right? But man, I was sitting in this group of like how many dozens of people, and they're like, oh yeah, this all sounds great. And ladies like, and I'll waive my consultation fee. I'll set you up for free. And you should do this now because soon you're going to be required to do it. So you might as well do it now voluntarily. Anytime someone says like, just do it now while it's voluntary, because later you're just going to have to do it. I'm like, does anyone else not think this sounds good? Like this sounds bad.
But it's you can't. This is the thing. You can't be against it because
no.
Then you get canceled. Like if you because then it can get misperceived. You're like, look, I don't agree with it for this. And like, oh, well, you hate this certain type of person or you hate this culture. And you're like, no. I'm just saying that I don't necessarily agree with the fact that we necessarily have to report on our beliefs or feelings and then also run our company and make everyone that works for us feel the same way.
Exactly. There's a difference between, like I said, all of them. I'm like, I agree with most of these and I would choose to run my business in this way and live my life in this way. But do I think it's fair that if I hired someone, I would have to make them do that? And do I think it's fair that my boring ability would be based on that, right?
I'm even seeing this on a super like small, like physical scale, I'll say, is the vaccination stuff. Some of my employees, and I'm seeing this with other companies that sometimes are struggling with some people that don't necessarily believe in the vaccinations, and now they're forfeiting their jobs to have to go on with that. And I understand it's a little bit more physical, whatever, but it's like the same concept on a much, I think it's a little easier to grasp concept versus like saying like a certain belief. But it's for some people, it's their belief to not have it.
Totally. And that's a case where, like that's a really tangible one and people think it's short term and we think it's immediate health concern. It's less abstract than like, no, what you believe.
Exactly.
Like, not like what you think for your individual physical health. But it's we live in this world now where there's going to be some sort of...
This is stuff they do in China. This is the stuff that they do in China.
I don't know, man. I've never been to China, so I can't speak to that. But I think it's increasingly what's going on in the Western world. But okay.
We completely went way off path there.
I know.
Those are some interesting topics. We're now already near the end of this. And we're going to end up having to drag this into another episode. Both ESGs going to be a separate episode. The market crash, when it takes place, we'll have an episode about that. And I'm probably going to wear like a fedora and talk about how I was right. And then we want to talk about what our topic was today. It was getting together your first 10 grand or your first down payment.
Yeah.
We're going to browse through it a little bit today. I think get people started on that, maybe get some feedback, and then we'll also revisit it again because we obviously have ran over time a little bit with our other topics.
I love this topic. I think we can hammer through a lot of this right off the bat.
Yeah. So we have, again, labeled as making your first 10 grand. And the reason we did this is I think a lot of people have asked us just kind of how to get together their first down payment. And that's becoming a lot more relevant as prices continue to increase. And you'll find sometimes linear saving isn't necessarily the way to do it because you can't necessarily keep up with how quickly inflation's taking place.
No.
How appreciation on the asset that you're trying to acquire, whether it be starting a business or buying a house, is growing. So, I mean, with that being said, the first line item that we have on here, which I just already knocked, was saving from your current income. So obviously you can save whatever you can if you're already making more than what you're spending. But then additionally, it's reviewing your expenses. This is something that I think is so important and it's so easy to let get out of hand. With just like, especially nowadays, everything is a subscription service. So every single thing is subscribe to this. Even like TV now, used to be, okay, you just subscribe to Netflix, but now everyone's got one. Like it's Amazon, Netflix, Disney, HBO, like everyone's got one. So sometimes it's worth thinking, okay, hold the phone here. Like I find a lot of people don't use Netflix as much sometimes as they used to, because there's all the other ones that they have their preferred show on.
And we got Prime the other day. It's like, see you later, Netflix.
This is the thing. So maybe you go, oh, you know what? I watched one movie on there, and I've paid for 3 months. So I paid $30. I could have just rented that movie for $2.99 or $5.99, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So there's items like that. The other thing that I think, like this is one that I say is important that I see a lot, is like packing a lunch and cooking at home. Those ones can add up so fast. Like you don't realize until you I think if you add up all your restaurant expenditures at the end of the month, that one gets out of hand so quick. And I know the packing a lunch one can be tough because a lot of times you don't necessarily get it done in the evening, and then in the morning you're maybe in a bit of a rush to get to work, so you don't get an opportunity to do so. But packing a lunch and making a coffee at home, like those couple things can save you $5-6 a day, which isn't huge, but that's a couple $100 a month.
Can I backtrack for a second?
Yeah.
Because I'm worried some people are going to listen to this and be like, these are just like, oh, pack a lunch and like all these. I think what we're saying is do a deep audit of your monthly expenses.
Yeah.
And I had this thing sort of because we talked about this before, like, gosh, what would you do for your first $1,000? What would you do if you could only had this much money?
Yep.
The first thing is to understand why. Yeah. Like, why am I struggling to reach $10,000?
True.
Right? You need to audit that. And that means, we're really fortunate because you can get everyone pays with credit now. Yeah. Right. So I've been in this situation. We talked about, man, the early days grinding, starting out.
Yep.
Man, we're very fortunate now. It's been good for a few years now.
Yep.
The early days, man, between having all these properties and mortgages and expenses and renovations, like you were moving money around just to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And there were routine times where I would go through and audit my monthly expenses and be like, oh my gosh, I'm paying for this fax to email service still. Yeah. And it's $15 a month that I forgot about.
Yeah.
I subscribe to Audible at $10 a month, and I've never gotten an audiobook. Right? Like it's so easy to click on these things and then lose track of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my Eastlink bundle expired, and I went from $99 a month to $250.
Yeah.
Right. So the first thing to do is to audit your expenses, because you go through there and you have to write those numbers out. Like, oh my gosh, like I spent how much money on Skip the Dishes last month?
Yeah.
Right. Take accountability for what you're actually spending on. So audit it aggressively and figure out what changes. Like it may be a situation where, man, you need to get a roommate.
100%.
You need to change what you're doing for your commuting. You need to do things like less coffee, pack a lunch, all these things. But
your cell phone plan, call them. I bet you can get it down $30-$40
This is what I would do when I would have these situations. I would call in. I'd say, Eastlink, like, hey, I want these things included free.
Yeah.
I would call Eastlink, and it's like, oh, yeah, actually, our plans changed 6 months ago, but we never told you, but we can actually save you this. And I would hack those suckers down. But the problem is, and we talked about this before, marginal propensity to consume or spend, which means no matter what you have, you will somehow end up with the same amount left in your bank account. Right? So what you need to do once you've shifted this, and say you shift off $300 a month, you have to pay yourself first.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to actually assign having money put away. They got apps now and different investing softwares that'll automatically pull the money out of your account.
Yep.
That's a really slick one, because then at the end of the month, your money's already coming out, and you're just kind of every week it pulls $50 out.
Yeah, pull it and send it over to an account that you don't have plastic access to. Yeah. An account that you have to go to the bank and take the money out.
Well, I mean, everyone's got the internet now, but yeah.
No, man, you can still get accounts that are not tied to your cards.
Yeah.
You smart aleck. People, because what you will find is once you've paid yourself first, you budget the rest off of that. It's amazing how that works. You've got to pay yourself first. After you audit, cut back things, then pay yourself first.
You should be checking your statements every month too, because the other thing that I'm seeing that's crazy is fraud. The amount of just getting slipped in there, like 1 or 2 transactions that you're like, wait a second.
Man, every time I go to the bank, because I still bank at the teller. I love banking at the teller. There's always like this little old lady in front of me being like, I got charged twice for this thing and I don't even know what it is. And they're there like, I can't help you. She's like, I called them and they said to talk to you. And I'm like, oh my God, man, I'm here like 20 minutes trying to get a bank draft. But it's legit. Like you look in there, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm
very, very common. Especially, and some of the times it's an accident. Like a lot of electronic online payments. Even if you accidentally click review and pay twice on a website that you're checking out on, it'll literally sometimes run the transaction twice. So there's that aspect, and then the fraud thing. I cannot believe how many people I've heard or I've had it happen to me a few times now, where I'm just getting like random order for $300 a pizza in Ontario. And it's, I don't know, I must have put it in on a form on some website online.
Like, how drunk was I last night? Did I go to Ontario?
Literally, I debated for a second and I'm like, but in all seriousness, so checking, like you said, doing a deep audit is extremely important to be able to figure out what you're spending on your monthlies, even on your annuals, reviewing any of the monthly plans that you're on that you really require. There's probably a good option to make a switch to bring it down in price because they're all designed like phone plans. You're paying $99.99 and it includes a phone. When your renewal comes, they don't drop the price, and you're still using your old phone.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there's so much stuff like that.
The problem is once you get rid of those expenses,
put that money away.
You got to put it away because otherwise people are like, I did all these things and I still don't have any more money. It's because you spent it. If you have it, you will spend it.
Yeah.
So you need to then pay yourself first. The problem is, say that goes great. What are you saving? $500 a month, right?
That's $6,000.
It's $6,000 in the course of a year.
Yeah.
Right. How can we expedite that? That's cutting expenses.
Yeah.
Right. And setting up a pay yourself thing. Right. Maybe you're now going to pay $500 into yourself.
I'm a big person on this now, like you're about to say. And now, so you've made the savings, but you got to increase the income.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm so big on that. Like you can spend all the time trying to cut down your savings. It can kind of become a vicious cycle too, to the point where you start not necessarily being able to enjoy what you're doing, and it becomes stressful where you literally can't even go out and enjoy yourself because you're so hell bent on saving. So then this is the next thing where you need to start looking at options to increase your income. And I think again, same thing. Starting small is really important with what you're doing, because I think a lot of people think like, oh, I need to do something like kind of big, or like, oh, it's not worth doing that. And so I don't know. I have a ton of different little ideas that I've written down on options on what you can do, but it's kind of understanding where your free time lies. And I think if you have an interest in something that you're going to do, it makes it a lot easier. But it doesn't need to be massive. Again, everyone thinks like, okay, I need to make $3,000 a month. Start with something small. If you're making a couple $100 a month and you're saving a couple $100 a month, okay, now you're adding $500 on and you're saving $500, $1,000. You got $12,000 in a year.
Yeah.
Plus whatever you could originally be able to save.
Yeah.
Good chance you might be able to put together a down payment within your first 12 to 18 months.
So if you need $1,000 right now, what would you do?
Me, honestly, I'd be flipping furniture in Kijiji. I've honestly never done it, so I can't speak to it too much, but I see, first of all, I'm going to buy furniture right now, and everything is hellish expensive, huge wait list. And additionally, there's a big desire, I think, now for a lot of like wood stuff again, which I used to have. And I know people that do it, and it's crazy, the numbers. Like, they'll buy an old dresser off Kijiji, and they'll take all the hardware off, sand it up, stain it, and put new hardware on from Home Depot, spend like $40 and a day's labor on a Saturday, and they paid $50 for the dresser, and they turn around and sell it for like $300-400, and it no issue selling it. So like, okay, I just made $200-300 on a single day on the weekend. So even if it took you 6 hours, I'm like, okay, well, you just made $30-40 an hour doing that, and that's a small way to get your first. Like that's what if you're working with a limited budget, you don't necessarily have $10,000 aside. Once you get a bit more, like I said, I'm a huge person for flipping vehicles. I think this
is what it gets back to. We talked about this before. Like, it's a grind, man. It's like, how bad do you want it? People are like, oh, this guy's telling me to take home used furniture, sand it down, paint. Like, what's going on? It's like, well, how bad do you want it in this moment? And maybe this episode, these little things aren't for everyone. But the people out there like who have, zero cash and are trying to save towards a down payment, first thing I would do is I'd raid my closet. I'd raid my closet.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people.
Raid my wife's closet, and then I'd go over to my parents' house. I would raid their closet, and I would raid the closet of my old stuff at my parents' house, and I would liquidate it all, man. We are in such a consumer culture that everyone, I guarantee you, I could walk through anyone's apartment right now and find $1,000 easily. Oh, yeah. Right? Like
old electronics, man.
You really need all those vinyl. Like you really need all those sneakers. Like I've got, man, we had
old
to like
cell phones. These are a couple, like these are $1,000 or $2,000 to buy a new one.
Anyone that needs money, sell me BlackBerry.
I say if you need old cell phones, sell them Chandler.
Like I used to like sneakers, right? Like I have a lot of sneakers, and all of these collectibles have really come back in vogue. Be it sneakers, be it card collections, whatever. All this stuff. There's a big market for it if you're willing to put the time in. So even if I needed to like turn and burn all of my Jordans and whatever at $75 a pop,
yeah,
right? Boom. $1,000.
Yeah.
Right? What's over at my parents' house that my mom's saving, like, well, just in case you ever need your old snowboard. Yeah. Right? Like $50.
Yeah.
Old golf. Like, there's all this stuff.
Yeah.
Someone's junk is another person's treasure. It's true. And there's so many ways now to get these to people. Facebook Marketplace, like, you don't have to have a yard sale and give everything away for $5 anymore.
No, exactly.
Right?
If anything collectible, like you just mentioned there, collectibles now, there's sites for all that stuff.
Totally.
And you can instantly value it, and you may be surprised. I did that with an old pair of shoes. I got $1,000 for an old pair of shoes. And it was the same thing. I put it on there. It was StockX.
Pervert on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. But like you put on StockX, and then you send it to them. They validated it, and then they sent it to the seller. But I mean, we're kind of short on time today because I got to run to an appointment. But the next thing I think we're going to talk about, and we'll start our next episode with this, is your gig jobs. The other option is nowadays, like there's Uber Eats, there's a million of these things. There's Instacart. There is money to be made on those. They're not super fun and they're not high margin. But again, if you already have a full-time job and you're not really interested in hunting online for stuff and you're more of a person that likes to physically do actions and you're like, I can't take on another like demolition job, let's just say, you could do a little bit of Uber Eats or a little bit of driving. I know a lot of people that will say just Uber drive Friday from like 10 till 2. And they're like, it is insane because everyone's coming out of the bars. So your margins are psycho. So it's not their full-time gig, but I've met a ton of people at those times that are like students or they already have full-time jobs. And they're like, I come here because I'm making like $100 an hour for 4 hours. And so it's not their full-time gig. They don't need the money, but it's money.
There's no restaurants that can find staff right now. Pick up a couple shifts, you know?
Yeah. So it's just play money in those periods. But we'll get into all those. There's a ton of other things like selling products online, ordering countertops from Alibaba and selling them to Chandler.
Seriously, man.
There's a ton of things to do.
There really is. It's a question of how bad do you want it. Like if you actually want to accumulate this in a short period of time, it is doable.
But before you think about that, look up ESG and go to your local superstore and look at the shelves and then just think about it for a sec. And I would love for some people to send us some messages. There's lots of you guys that are. Again, appreciate it. I think both Chandler, myself, Tanner, we're all getting messages of people supporting and giving us recommendations. But yeah, can continue doing so. And if you have some feedback on some of the stuff that we've said, or if there is something like I'd love to hear some people's thoughts on what's going on with interest rates, what's going on with inflation, why are we seeing these shortages on the shelves, and how is this going to pan out? Like, is this just all going to be fixed in the next 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't our area necessarily of expertise, right? So
No.
I'd be curious to see what some people out there are finger on the pulse of the import-export, what's going on.
Exactly. So thanks for listening today.
All right, we're wrapping it up.
Sorry we had to go a little short. I'm on a tight timeline today.
This is a winding trail we went on today, but thanks for listening. Please share the podcast, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you next week. Thanks for checking out the episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell button for notifications. If this is your first time here, check out our back catalog for more episodes. Thanks so much for watching.
When I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.